Hello, this is Ray. We're going to be making something today. We're going to be making a file folder insert in field note size, which is designed to hold credit cards. This is to slip inside your traveller style notebook, where it will go with you with a notebook and carry your credit cards. There's not much more to say about it than that. It will carry 4 cards, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and it's very easy to make with fairly simple materials in just 5 minutes or so. Let me show you how it's done. You're going to start with a piece of either A4 or letter size card. Have a nice stiff card, perhaps 200 GSM or greater. The sort of things that people make greetings cards out of are great, and some of those come pre-folded in half anyway, but if they don't, what I've done here is I've simply scored roughly down the middle and folded it in half. That's not where I'm going to stop. I'm going to continue a little bit further than that. As we know, a standard field notes or Moleskine Cahier booklet is 14 centimeters tall and about 9 centimeters wide, and that's going to be the finished size of our piece. Now, the way that we're going to put this together is using Marianne Kensington's method for the 6-pocket file folder. If you've never seen that, you really need to. I'm linking to her method in the comments on this video, so please go and check that out. I've made a few differences to her basic method, but this wouldn't exist without her videos, so please go and watch those and support her. I'm going to make a couple more folds in this piece of A4. First of all, I'm going to do 2 more folds parallel with this central one, and those are going to be 92mm this side and 92mm this side. 92 to account for the fact that it's sitting behind a booklet in my cover, so it needs a little extra width. So let me mark those measurements off using a ruler. 92 and 92 down here at the bottom. And then similarly over here to the left as I'm looking at it. Of the central fold. 92 and 92, and just make light pencil marks. You can rub those out afterwards if you want to. Now what we need to do is score along those lines. Now I know there are scoring tools and people sometimes use the pointy tip of a bone folder. What I use is a Swiss Army knife, and specifically the screwdriver attachment of a Swiss Army knife. I find that these points here give you exactly the right depth that you need for a decent score line. So if I align those pencil marks and then score, and I'll do the same thing on these pencil marks here and score, and then I can gently encourage the folds along those lines. Now we're getting there. Hopefully you can see that that basic shape is somewhere good to be aiming for. We need another fold down here, and here we're going to go for exactly the depth of a field notes book, which is 14 centimeters. So if I mark off 14 there, and then somewhere off over here, I'll take a second measurement and mark off 14 again, and then as before I can score across the imaginary line which bisects the pencil marks. Let's encourage that. Now if you've seen Marianne's videos, if you've made her folders, you'll be very, very familiar with this shape and the folds that are now in place. Ultimately, we're going to be fashioning the piece like that. A couple of things to do first though. So one of those, which you'll know from Marianne's method, is to cut out this piece. Now what I tend to do, Marianne doesn't do this, but I tend to, is I cut off a little piece down here as well, and I'll show you why in a moment. Now let me show you the effect of that. When you put the folds together, hopefully now you can see here there is a bit of demarcation between this pocket here and what's going to be the credit card pockets there, which is a little enhancement I've made. I think that gives you a better finish than the basic method. Now at this point you'd be nearly done if you were just making a file folder. We're going to do a couple of things differently. Marianne would have you chop off these corners, which is great, you can do that. Sometimes I simply round them, which I think is what I'm going to do on these ones today. I'm just going to use a corner clipper. Oh, these pieces go everywhere. Hey. Okay, so that's going to give a nice rounded finish to the pockets, and later on in the make I can round all of these corners as well if I want to, so that they align with a filled notes book. So at this point what Marianne would be doing in her first method is taping these down. In her second method she would use scraps of similarly coloured cardstock to kind of glue over these seams. We're not going to do it that way, we're going to use glue, and you'll see why we need to use glue in a moment. So first of all, let's unfold it slightly. Clearly we're going to need to glue at the top and the bottom, but we're also going to run a bead of glue down the middle to separate this big flap into two card compartments. And if I put the cards there roughly as they'll be positioned in the finished piece, you can see that between them, that's where we're going to need to run a bead of glue. Now you can use any craft glue for this really that's going to stick paper or card. I'm going to use a basic PVA glue pen. The thing to remember if you're using PVA is it sticks fairly well, but it does spread out a little bit when you push surfaces together. So you need to make sure that you are using a really, really thin bead, or it will swallow up all the space that you've allocated to accommodating a credit card. So we're going to put a bead at down the middle where I've marked. We're going to have another one along the top of this flap and another one just along the bottom there. Now I could push those together and then sit there for 10 minutes while they dried. I'm not going to be doing that. What I'm going to be doing instead is using some binder clips to hold it all together for me. Now clearly the binder clip isn't going to reach onto this part here, but if I simply put one across the end there, that should hold the thing together. And then I can do exactly the same at this end of the folder. Again, let's position the cards. Let's find the centre line where I'm going to need to glue, and I can repeat my actions from before. Now there's nothing of course to stop you using Marianne's tape or card method for joining the top and the bottom, but you will need to use glue to divide this up into 2 card slots. That's probably worth pointing out at this stage that if you wanted to do one of these for a full-size traveller's notebook, you've obviously got more room to play with, and you could probably get 3 credit cards in here. So use the same methods. Lay the credit cards down, draw where you want to glue to separate the compartments, and then glue accordingly. So I'm going to put this together before that's too dry. Okay, and then I'm just going to leave that for 10 minutes or so to thoroughly dry and set, and then we can apply some finishing touches.
Intermission time. Time that stretch you've been wanting. And best of all, time to take your pick from that scrumptious array of tasty treats waiting for you at the snack bar, where the popcorn's poppin', the cold drinks are sparkling, the hot dogs are sling, the coffee is steaming, and a luscious treasure of confectionery delights with ice cream and candy, and so much more to tempt any taste, is waiting for you now at the snack bar. You'll be notified in plenty of time when the next show is about to begin.
Okay, that should be dry now, so let's take off the binder clips. And there's the finished piece. Now, as I said earlier, the one thing that you can do is you can round these corners as well, as I have in this one earlier. But the one thing that I think you should definitely do is use a hole punch to just put some knocks in there at the top and the bottom so that it sits comfortably on the elastic inside your notebook. So just take a tiny bit of a circle out there, top and bottom, and then you can see these little notches there which the elastic will sit in quite comfortably. And what you'll find if you've done everything right is that your credit cards will sit quite happily and quite firmly inside these slots. They're not going to go anywhere unless you want to take them out. Now you'll notice that these flaps, unlike on Marianne's version, only come, well, maybe perhaps 2/3 of the way or even a little less across the piece. Now that really works for me when you're using it as a credit card pocket, because it makes it very easy to get the cards to come in and out. If you wanted that to come a little bit closer to the edge of the card, then what you could do with your piece of A4 is move your central line off centre to one side or the other. Now that means at one end you would have more room in this flap to move further back, but at the cost that you wouldn't have that on the other side. This flap would be correspondingly shorter. You can't make them both longer because the laws of physics prevent you from doing so. Not to say geometry as well. But actually I quite like it the way it is. If you did want a longer one, then one of the things that you could do would be to maybe knock a semicircle out here in the same way that Marianne does on her regular folders. But I'm quite happy with the way that this one has come out. As I say, you can make one for a full-size traveller's notebook as well, which will be 3 cards deep, and that would enable you then to carry quite a large number of cards. You'll need to start with a bigger piece of card, of course, if you're doing it for the full-size traveller's notebook. You would need to start with either a file folder, as Marianne does, or a piece of A3 card. I've had very good success with doing that from A3 card. So I strongly encourage you to have a go at that. It's an excellent insert. You can use different coloured card to coordinate with your traveller's notebook as well. And I'd strongly recommend that you have a go.